welcome to the DeHart house. My name is Alicia and I'm your host of this crafty channel here on YouTube. The end of spring season is almost here. Today is June 16th. It is Father's Day here in the United States, and I have finished my spring making list, so I thought I would go ahead and record my roundup video for this season. So this video, I'm going to talk about the items that I put on my making list for the spring season and showcase each of them that I was able to complete this season. Spoilers, I completed them all. So summer is almost here. Like I said, it's June 16th. June 20th on the calendar is the first day of summer, and I believe, if I remember correctly, the date of the summer solstice. And so around this time is when it's getting warmer and things. Although the weather today, you wouldn't know it. It's very spring-like weather and not summer. It's in the low 50s, almost 40s degrees Fahrenheit outside, cloudy, little drizzly. So, you know, the weather being the weather and unpredictable. But on my spring making list for 2024, I put 3 items on the list. Winter season, I went a little overboard and didn't complete everything on my list, and I thought, you know what, I would like these lists to be actually attainable and not just put a bunch of stuff out there and throw darts at the wall and see what sticks, but actually a focus list of things I could do. So for spring, I only put 3 things on my list, and so I want to talk about those 3 things because I did make them all. First up on my list is the Solidago, which is actually what I'm wearing today. I wore this to church today despite the cool weather. So I did throw a shawl on top of it because it was a little breezy. But yeah, it's the first time I've actually worn it out of the house because the weather has not been too hot, and when it's been warm days, it's actually been on the weekend when we're not going anywhere. So I wore it out today knowing that I wanted to record this episode. So this is the Solidago. This is designed by the Barocco design team. It is a free pattern that I downloaded off of Ravelry. And the pattern calls for a DK weight yarn, somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000 yards. The particular suggested yarn is Barocco Modern Cotton DK. Makes sense since this was designed by the Barocco team. However, that particular yarn is discontinued. Not that I have any in my stash, but I of course went looking at my local yarn shops and big box stores and I couldn't find it. It turns out it's discontinued. This yarn that's suggested is 60% cotton, 40% rayon. So what I did is found a yarn that was similar that I could easily access. Let me just grab the yarn ball real quick. Yeah, so I had to get a yarn that was close to that. I guess I didn't have to. I wanted to get a yarn that was close to that. Before I talk about what I use, let me finish the specs of the pattern. It's written for using US size 3 and 5 needles, and the intention is to make this with 2 to 4 inches of positive ease so that it's a nice relaxed t-shirt kind of fit. So like I said, the yarn was not something I could really get my hands on, so I went to my local Joann's and I picked up Lion Brand Kobu, which is pretty close to a 50-50 blend of cotton and rayon, as opposed to the suggested yarn, which was a 60-40 blend. Yeah, and I picked out this color. It is called Ice Blue. I purchased 6 balls. Each ball has 100 grams and 232 yards. And I bought 6 of them because I made size 3 in the pattern, and I did not need 6 balls. I have 1 extra. I also have a partial ball that I dipped into a little bit, so I have like 2/3 of a ball plus this whole one I never touched. So yeah, if you're thinking of making this pattern, don't overbuy the yarn. Yeah, so I used US size 4 needles instead of 5 in order to match the gauge in the pattern. The gauge in the pattern is 24 stitches and 30 rows in a 10 by 10 centimeter square. When I went down to a US size 4, I did achieve that gauge. I was mostly looking for the stitch gauge as opposed to the rows because blocking vertically really changed things, but the US size 5s were a little bit too big, created a looser fabric, so I went down to the 4s. Like I said, I used, I made size 3 for myself, and this took me almost a month. So I started it March 20th, I finished it April 15th, so not too bad. Especially not bad considering I did a lot of blocking along the way. So because this is 50% cotton, and I know from my experience with making towels and washcloths and things that cotton, depending on kind of what stage it's in, but is either going to super stretch out or shrink in. So I have some dish towels that when they're wet, they get humongous, and then after they've been through the dryer, they kind of shrink a little. So I was trying to keep some of those things in mind, especially with the weight of this thing. We're talking about more fabric than a towel or dishcloth. So I didn't want it to become this super long, huge piece that looked like it was ill-fitting. I wanted it to fit me nicely, and I think I achieved that. So in order to get the right length, I blocked it almost every night after knitting, just so that I could get accurate length measurements. The pattern is written to say, you know, keep working to a certain length before starting the ribbing, and so I wanted to make sure I got that pretty accurate. So yeah, there was a lot of wet blocking. I basically just sprayed it with a water spritzer and then laid it out on a towel on the floor and like stretched out the fabric to where I needed it to be and let it sit overnight to dry. Sometimes it wouldn't be dry the next day, so I'd have to wait to work on it. But it's a very straightforward pattern. There's very little shaping. The only real shaping is like around the neck. So there's a little bit here, but otherwise it's pretty much just a front rectangle and a back rectangle, and you sew them together. And I think the sewing just adds like some really nice structure to this, a little stability. And yeah, so I like that the pattern here helped me keep count of my rows. And so I didn't, no, I did log, I tallied every time I finished a row because I had to keep track of the lace pattern here. But I knit the back first because that's what it says in the order in the pattern is the back comes first. And then once I got the right length, I just knit the front to match it. And you do this bottom up, I think. Yeah, bottom up construction, and then you kind of finish with the neck here. And I love it. I like the color, I like the fit. Would I make this again? Yes, absolutely. So far, so good on the pattern itself as well as the yarn. Like I said, I've only worn this out of the house once now, so we'll see how it goes after a few wears and washes, but right now I love it. I think it's great. So I used 4.08 skeins to complete this project, which came out to roughly 947 yards. Considering the price I paid for the yarn, I did purchase it on sale. But if I take the sale price and then kind of prorate it for the amount of skeins that I used, this top cost me $21.18 without sales tax. I took sales tax out of the equation. But yeah, the pattern was free. That cost me nothing. All I had to spend money on was the yarn. I didn't need to make any additional purchases of buttons, zippers, closures, any needles or other tools. So it was literally just the yarn. So a $21.18 top, super affordable. The next item on my spring making list that I finished was a piece of crochet mandala wall art. So I used the pattern Mandalove by Sis Homemade, which is another free pattern I snagged off of Ravelry. So what I do with patterns off of Ravelry usually is I download the file to my phone or tablet, and then I use a nice PDF writing app, and I can just make tallies on a PDF file and make notes on there. So that's what I did for this one. So this one tags the boxes of crochet for me, which was my first yarn craft as a young person. So every time I get to do a crochet project, it brings me joy. But yeah, so it is a glorified doily that is mounted inside of a metal ring. Yep. So I used 3 different colors of crochet cotton to create this. I purchased the metal ring at Hobby Lobby. I forget what section of the store this is in, but yeah. The crochet cotton is something I purchased a while ago, also from Hobby Lobby, but I don't know, maybe it has the price on the band. Let me check. Yeah, they have prices on them, and they're all different. How bizarre. Yeah, so basically I purchased all of these items at Hobby Lobby, and the pattern was free, but I cast this on April 16th, so the day after I finished this project. I shouldn't say cast on because it's crochet. I started this project, and I finished this April 25th, so 9 days. That's not bad. It actually went very quickly. So I used, like I said, 3 different colors. So this is number 10 crochet thread, 100% mercerized Egyptian cotton. The brand is Artiste. All 3 of them are the same brand. The white is porcelain. The light blue is baby blue, and the gray here is pewter. And I did purchase these 3 colors with the intention of making this project. It's hard to tell in the pattern how large or small this is. And even in the pattern, they're like, oh, it depends on, you know, your gauge. it could turn out really small or really big, and yes, but I would have really liked a little more guidance on what to shoot for. Since I didn't know, I actually bought 3 different metal rings here, a small, medium, large. This is the medium. I'll make more mandalas and fill those things, but yeah, I wasn't really sure, and I wanted to have the supplies before I forgot where I purchased them. So yeah, the yarn all have different prices on them. So the porcelain says $2.89, the baby blue says $2.99, and the pewter says $3.99, which I find that very interesting. They are different prices, and the metal ring cost $2.99. And the pattern was free, so not a very expensive project at all. I did estimate my yardage for this project. It was a little hard because inside of the tube here is a cardboard insert. So I weighed each of the balls, and so I weighed them before taking any yarn off of them, and weighed them afterward, and was hoping that would help me compute the yardage. So I have an estimate that I used 209 yards in this project in total across the 3 colors. And as you can see, most of it is still left, like it's barely used any out of these 3 colors. So yeah, you'll have a lot left over. But yeah, the pattern was pretty straightforward. I really appreciated the pictures that went along with the instructions. So they had the written instructions for the repeats. There was also a chart to follow as well, and the pictures explaining some of the nuanced stitches or techniques. Couldn't have done it without those photographs. They were very, very helpful. So I would recommend this pattern to someone who's made at least 1 crochet doily already in their life. And I think once you have the experience of making 1, that's really all you need for this pattern. But I don't know that I would recommend this as a first to somebody, because it was kind of a lot. But I really like the different stitches and things. If I were to do it again, you can see it's a little loose when I shake it like a trampoline. But I would have blocked the corners a little more pointy in some of these areas, stretched it out a bit more. You can see I could stretch this out more on here. So the next one I make, because I will make another one, I will keep those things in mind. But yeah, this one I mostly blocked it at the end, and I didn't use any starch on this whatsoever, which I think is the beauty of kind of mounting it in this ring, is if you can wet block it to the shape, and that pretty much holds the shape for you, then the mount will do the rest. Yeah, I love it. It's hanging up in our bedroom above our bed as a part of the wall art. And the third and final item on my spring making list that I did in fact finish is the Breckenridge Topper cardigan. And this is yet another free pattern that I got off of Ravelry, except this one the pattern is hosted on a blog, and so I just went and read it on the blog. I think you can pay to download one without ads in it. I can't remember, but free. This is a pattern by Jessica Reeves Potaz. It calls for a DK weight yarn, somewhere between 1100 and 1600 yards. The suggested yarn is Lion Brand Comfy Cotton Blend, which is a 50% cotton, 50% polyester. And the pattern is written to have US size 11 needles. And it is specified to have ease in your garment, positive ease, but the amount is not specified. So yes, make it with positive ease. End of statement. No suggestions about how much. So I would recommend that addition to the pattern, but what I did is I basically went for the length of this coming down around my elbow, and you can see I overshot it just a little bit, but only by a little bit. So the construction of this thing is 2 big long rectangles, and those are the 2 sides, but those 2 rectangles also go down the back, and what you do is you sew them up the middle, only halfway, to join the back side together, and then leave the front open for the front. And so it's a nice big drapey open cardigan. And you sew them up a little bit here on the sleeve, but you mostly leave it open. So I've got this textured shirt on underneath, so I don't know that it's the best pairing, but you get the idea. So I did not use the suggested yarn, but I did go with another Lion Brand yarn. So I use Lion Brand True Boo, which is 100% something. No, there's no tag there. I'll put it on the screen. It's 100% something. Super soft, as you can see, shiny. Love it. I used the color Thistle, which is an interesting color because in person it looks very purple, but on screen sometimes it can look very indigo. And when I purchased this, it looked very indigo. So when I opened the box and saw purple, I was sad. But it's grown on me. I like the color. Yeah. I ordered 6 skeins again, and I did not even use 5. I did not even use 4. I used 3.88 skeins. So I feel like, again, because the pattern is ambiguous about the amount of ease recommended and kind of which size you should make for your bust circumference, the estimation for the size I made was too much. So I have extras. But in total, I used 935 yards to make this project. The pattern called for US size 11 needles. I do have 11 needles, and I did make a swatch, and I thought the fabric was super open, which is part of the intent. I mean, it's a little bit sheer, and that's on purpose. But I went down a needle size to a 10.5, and I much preferred the knitting experience as well as the fabric. You know, sometimes if your needles are huge and you're using really thin yarn, sometimes just the experience of knitting with that combination is tedious or not enjoyable. And that's how I felt with the 11s, but when I switched to the 10.5s, it seemed like a really smooth process, and I liked that. So I used 10.5 needles for the most of the project, but I did look through the project pages of other Ravelry users who had made this pattern, and one of them recommended going down a size for the ribbing at the bottom. So that's what I did. I used US size 9s for the ribbing at the bottom. And that same Ravelry user also mentioned knitting the two front panels separate, but then joining together to knit straight across for the back. And I thought, yep, I'm doing that. I had finished the Solidago where I was tallying after every single row, so I knew where I was in the pattern. And I wanted a project that I could just knit on and not have to track as much. And so that's what I did. I knit the two front panels 2 at a time. So I had 2 balls of yarn going for the 2, but I knit across here, then knit back across the 2, and then that way I didn't have to keep track of how many rows did I do in the first panel so that I have the same number of rows on the second panel. So it was a little cumbersome with the multiple balls of yarn going around, but in the end I think it was worth it. And then I joined together in the back, and there's a little bit of a garter detail back here. Hopefully the camera caught that. Not my idea. I took it off of that Ravelry users project page, and I love it. I think it's great. It's not super warm, so it is great for this time of the year, late spring into summer, and it's just going to be something I can throw on. I would feel pretty comfortable taking this to the beach, honestly, and throwing this on over top of a bathing suit with some shorts and just being super casual about it. I'm also going to feel pretty comfortable wearing this to work as a layering piece. I mean, I'm not going to wear a bathing suit to work, but you know, a full covered shirt underneath, but then this on top. Some of the rooms on campus are colder than others, just like any building. So, yeah. I like it. I haven't worn it out yet. And I did the spritz down in quick little block, but I haven't properly washed it yet. So we will see what happens to this garment after I do those things. And I really hope it doesn't morph this into a different kind of garment. I hate when that happens after a wash, and I'm looking at a sweater right now where the sleeves extended past my fingertips like a good 6 inches, 6 to 8 inches, and it's really sad. So anyway, I made all 3 items on my spring making list. I feel like I probably should have said this at the beginning, but seasonal making lists are something new that I started this year, 2024, and I'm trying this out as a way to focus a little bit of my making around what's in season now. So it'll give me a little bit of joy of working on something that's in season during the season, super relatable. I want to get it done so I can use the thing. But also so that I can have a little bit of more thought go into my wardrobe, what I'm adding to it, why I'm adding to it, this item. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it so far. We're 2 seasons in, and summer will be coming down the pipeline next. So after this video, next up on the channel, you can expect to hear about my summer making list. So I am putting together a list of items that I want to make for the summer that are, to me, summer related things. And right now it's mostly garments, but as you saw, I made a piece of wall art as well. So it's not restricted to one type of thing or one type of craft. It's very open in that respect. So I'm doing that. I also want to keep in mind that I want to fill in places in my wardrobe where I feel like, oh, I don't quite have that. And I would like to have that. I also want to keep the list attainable. So something that I could complete the whole list in the season. And I also want to make space for other things. So I do really enjoy making for gifts for others, and they're not necessarily things I'm going to put on a seasonal making list and do a bunch of highlights about. So I still want to leave space and time to do those other things as well. So yeah, it's just a little something to help me be somewhat focused, a little organized, intentional crafting, while still leaving space for me to be spontaneous or gift giving and secret knitting and things like that. So if you enjoy videos along these lines, I hope you'll give this a thumbs up. And if you're not already subscribed, I would love it if you would subscribe, because I can't believe we're over 1,000 subscribers. You guys are amazing. But yeah, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to edit this episode and see what's going on in the rest of the house. And I'll see you next time in the summer making video.